Hello and welcome. This is Chris Dunn. I'm checking in from the Event Marketers Toolbox. I am with Blue Hive Exhibits. I've got a couple of friends who are joining me today. We're going to have a killer conversation. It's going to be super fun. I'm going to kick it over to my co-host. He was a guest last week, but he's a co-host this week. So a man of many talents, Mr. Brendon Hamlin of Hamlin Creative. Hey, Brendon.
Hey, Chris. How are you? How's it going? Happy to be back. Yeah, I guess I'm always sort of sitting on this side of the screen, but I guess my role changes from
That's
week
right.
to week.
You're very adaptive. You're able to pivot. Yeah.
But I'm Brendon Hamlin. I run Hamlin Creative. We're a production company based out of North Carolina, and we spend a lot of time in the event space, creating content in and around activations, conferences, trade shows, and it's a unique space. And so we really love the opportunity to create and build content in what the whole live event umbrella. And it's a pleasure to be back on the Toolbox again this week. And we have a wonderful guest today, Katie Wengenroth. Katie, welcome to the Toolbox.
Hey, Brendon. Hey, Chris. Happy to be here.
Thanks for joining us, Katie.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about your background and what you do.
Yeah, definitely. So I have been working in the event space for about 15 years now, which is a little wild. But I started off on the agency side. Out of college, I worked for an agency called Nth Degree. I was in the South for a little bit, based in Atlanta, and primarily focused on the trade show space, where I worked. Actually, Blue Hive was one of my very first clients when I started in this industry. And then I moved up to Boston, continuing to work for the agency, managing speaker management, sponsorship management, signage, a lot of those like kind of core logistical components of larger, 10, 20,000 person conferences. And then for about the last 10 years, I transitioned from the agency side into working in tech. So for large, public and private SaaS companies like HubSpot, LogMeIn and Outreach, where I managed a variety of internal and external events. So focused for quite a bit of time at LogMeIn on their internal sales kickoffs, hackathons, their incentive trips, which were always a lot of fun, while also always kind of managing those industry events and the third-party conferences, customer-facing events like customer advisory boards, user conferences. It feels like I've done a little bit of everything in my time. And finally, at Outreach, I managed a flagship events team and a field marketing team. So kind of rounded out a good chunk of experience on the marketing side, learning a lot about how marketing organizations function, how go-to-market organizations function, and how events kind of fit into that ecosystem. And then, for it's been almost 2 years, I have started my own business. So KVT Events, which it's been a lot of fun. It's a path that I never in a million years thought that I would be on. Never had an entrepreneurial spirit, never thought I had the connections or the knowledge to start my own business, but I'm excited to talk a little bit more about that today. It's been a lot of fun and a lot easier than I thought it would be. So
everybody always talks about how hard it is to be an entrepreneur, but here you're going to come on and pull back the curtain. And
anybody can do it. No, it's one other thing I'll say is I'm based actually in Woodstock, Vermont, which is really great. I was in Boston for a really long time, and then I moved to Woodstock, where I'm really lucky to be surrounded by a lot of contractors, consultants, small business owners, and so that really kind of helped give me a little bit of the confidence, even though none of them are in tech or events per se, but helped kind of push me in that direction as well, which is kind of fun.
Voted prettiest small town in America at one point, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's true. Come visit, please.
I have.
Yes.
Very jealous from down here in Massachusetts, looking at up north at friends in Vermont, saying, really cool to live in Vermont. Well, Katie, you and I have been friends for a long time. This is one of the best things about doing a show like this that I control is basically being able to invite friends on and have these great conversations. So the goal, here with Event Marketers Toolbox, we started a little over a year ago. And the goal is to just create a cool community for event people, really from all walks of life, to come and have these interesting conversations. And, it's been really interesting and fun to see this grow. This is actually show number 49. So we're on the precipice of doing 50 shows, which literally I think back just a mere, 12 months ago, and it was like crunch time. We were getting ready to launch this thing, and it was really hard. Like myself and another actually mutual friend of ours, Caitlin Carey, actually started the show, and we were like supporting each other. We're like, we're going to do this and we're going to get it off the ground. And we just could not get it off the ground until we enlisted the help of one of our sponsors. So Fist Bump is an agency, and they're running the board right now. They're doing all the hard stuff. They helped us get this show up and running. So what did that do for us at Blue Hive as a brand? It allowed us to kind of set ourselves as thought leadership in the industry to be able to have these conversations. We don't create commercial for Blue Hive by any means, but it's an opportunity to have wonderful conversations that dive into all different aspects of events. And then Fist Bump actually helps us curate all that content. And now we can use that for not just social media, but also for outreach and for touching base with our existing clients. Hey, you're having a problem. You know what? On episode 35 at 39 minutes in, we talked about that same thing. Here's a little clip. So if you're a brand out there and you've been toying with the idea of doing a live show and a podcast, it's hard, but if you find the right people to help, it's really a whole lot easier, and it's super rewarding, and they can really just cultivate all sorts of content for you to use in many different ways. Also, my employer, Blue Hive, is also obviously a sponsor. So here we are, almost a year in. Blue Hive as a brand, almost 21 years old. I guess position-wise, I always think about how do I talk a little bit about the company in a way that is helpful. People get to know who we are and what's a good fit. We really have a white glove mentality. We try to really kind of wrap our arms around the brand, their goals, the message, build relationships that are deep, not just one show long, but multiple years long, and become that extension of our brand's team. And we are by no means inexpensive or the most inexpensive folks out there. I think what we bring to the table is a considerable group of creative logistic experts, brand management people, and we kind of put them all under one roof, and we help you do everything from, start to finish when it comes to trade shows and other select areas within the event form. So anyways, those are our two sponsors. And now we're going to kind of jump into the meat and potatoes of the conversation. And Brennan, you've got some cool questions teed up for Katie. So let's get going.
Yeah. Well, Katie, again, it's great to have you here today and spend some time with us. I love the background that you have, and you shared a lot there at your intro. So I similarly have a background on the brand side, I guess. So I was in television for about 15, 18 years, and so spend a lot of time learning in that world before setting out on my own and really starting to then take all of that learning and put it back into brands directly. So talk a little bit about your evolution and your journey and how those building blocks have sort of helped you today as you support your clients.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's almost like when you look back at the time, right? You don't always realize how much you're really picking up until you look back and you realize okay, I have a really unique set of skills, right? And I think starting off, I always knew I wanted to work in events. My dad used to go to conferences when I was young, and I was like, I really like this mixture of meetings and social aspect. And I really like the production elements of the conferences. And so I don't know why I kind of just gravitated towards that, but I was like, I know I want to do conferences. I want to do corporate events and conferences. So,
did you ever go with him? Just out of curiosity.
Oh yeah. I went with him. Yeah. And a lot of them were they were family. I guess this is when you could bring your family to a lot of the conferences. And they were mostly, there were some, they were all out west. And so they were incentive meetings in the government space. So it was a lot of fun to see a little bit of everything. And I interned at a couple of them when I was older, which was a lot of fun too. So when I, graduated, I'm like, okay, I need a job. What do I do? I'll plug Scott Bennett. Talk to Scott. Scott works in events. He knows people in events, right? So talk to Scott, and I just kind of miraculously end up at this event agency that's all logistics based, right? So trade shows, logistics, operations. And I feel like I was really lucky in those first 5 years to learn so much about the ins and outs and really how organized you need to be and how to be organized, right? And sometimes you get into an event role at a tech company or at a pharma company, and they are okay, put you right into the mix of doing a little bit of everything, and you don't have that foundation. So I was lucky enough to have that foundation early on for the first 5 years of my career. And then when I moved into working for HubSpot, it was a really great transition because I was running their inbound conference. at a very young age with a very small internal team. It was the beginning of kind of inbound back in 2014. But I had that foundation, and I kind of knew operationally how an event should work, right? And then I was able there to learn, okay, I also can leverage this content team, right? And leverage our brand team and the creative team, and how do you build the website, and kind of all of those other components beyond just the back end logistics, like what actually needs to happen from, a business perspective, more of a brand perspective. And so that was an amazing, and obviously the production elements that we had at Inbound were really fantastic. That was the year we had like Martha Stewart come on as the keynote, and building out like their club Inbound space was really great. And then moving on to LogMeIn, where I did some of the external stuff, but not really those big conferences anymore. I really focused more on the internal events. And, our kickoff was 1,200 people. So that was learning like how to source hotels, right? And how to source venues, and contract negotiations, and more like internal dynamics, and working with an engineering team and with a marketing team, with a people ops team. So really trying to getting an eye into all of the different, functions of the business, and how events supported those internally as well. So yeah, and then at Outreach, when I kind of put it all together, when I look back at it, it's like, oh, actually, this was a decent path, right? At Outreach, I really focused a lot more on the marketing side of things, and how like a field marketing organization operates, and how to work with your SDR team, and how to build follow-up plans, and how to measure, and how to predict like what you're actually going to be able to drive. And I had an amazing manager there who was really focused on, she's a true like revenue marketer, and kind of really getting ingrained in that side of the business, and learning a lot of that. I think taking all those things together really set me up well when I did jump into consulting, to be able to have kind of all of those components in my toolbox. There you go.
I love how you tied that in.
That was good.
That wasn't even planned, guys.
No.
It's interesting to see you paint this very literal picture in front of me.
Yeah.
And when I look at my past, although I've been in trade shows for 30 years, before that, the things that I did were like a ping pong ball. I look back and they were so non-linear, but they connected the dots and brought me from being a designer who's a craftsman first, into sales, selling something completely separate, and then somehow back to events, and it all just ties together. And I think that's, step aside from the event thing and just talk as humans, like, if any younger people in your journey are just starting out, and things aren't making sense or whatever, like, just sometimes you got to trust the process, and sometimes you take a leap of faith and you do something, and if it doesn't work, you go from there, but you learn. You're always going to learn, like, at every step of the way. And like you were saying, Katie's like, you think back to all of those things that you had done, and I think your path is a very linear path, and you were building foundational blocks. Every step you went, you kind of boom, moved up, and you had built this great foundation, because now you know so many different things. And that doesn't always happen like that, but it's just really cool to kind of look back on that and see how that all comes together. Brendan, your background is similar in that, right? All of the things that you did in TV and learned. You were saying last week on the show, you learned how to get a message that's this big and make it this big, and make it make sense in a very small, concise point of time, and get it across. And that's so critical today, right? The ability to focus, the short attention span that people have these days is so minute that we've got to be able to deliver that message in such a small, concise moment, so that people know why they should give a shit about what we're talking about.
And I think what's important there too, it goes back to what I've done for 25, 30 years is build a network, and so there's people that I worked with when I was in television that I'm still working with today. Like, I went to college with one of my editors, and so and
that was a long time ago.
We're working on a project right now, and so like that sort of, maybe you can talk talk about that, Katie,
Yeah.
too, because building a network of people that understand that shorthand is invaluable. And so I'm looking for people like that all the time and have people in my network. But it's so critical for success, I think, these days to have a solid network.
Yeah. And I think when I look back at my path, and Chris, I know you're saying it's linear, like if I think about it and like how I got from step to step, it was like I followed the people that I wanted to work for, right? And like that, if I look back at it, that's really how it started, like going from, and where I said I knew, Scott. And then when I went to HubSpot, it was because someone was like, okay, now are you ready to come in here and do this? And then I left HubSpot because someone else, and I've made it in my consulting career, a portion of my career as well. Like when I started doing this, my number one thing was like, I just want to work for good people. And that's really been my primary goal. And I've been really lucky in that I've been able to have 99% of my business come from referrals. And so I think it's important to remember, like there's so many politics and so many different things that go on in business and at different companies. But I think if you can focus on, doing good work, obviously that's really important. Like you need to have the skills, but if you can build those relationships along the way, like the people that you're going to want to work for are always going to be there. And it's a matter of like finding those folks. And like you said, Brendon, then when you get to have your own business, then you can have them come back and work for you, or try to have them come on as a client. Yeah. So and that goes for like people who you want to work for, who you want to work with, who your partners are, who your vendors are, like having that, I think having that team, that literal team of like, when it comes to someone to do trade shows and a production partner and your signage person and having that team really helps you along your entire journey. I think it's really important.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
You're a solopreneur, but you are deep and wide with regards to your skilled resources because of those relationships you've built, right? It's like, hey, do you know somebody who does this? I do. I don't do it myself, but I have somebody, we're already tied together. They don't need to learn how I work because we've already done it, right? We've already done it.
Yeah. And even when it comes to like and Brendon, it might be the same for you, when it comes to like my business and my team, like I usually will tell, clients or whoever I'm talking with, like it's me, but I do have a really strong network of folks who will come on and support me and kind of flex up and down as needed on different projects to be able, so that I can take on more, right? Because also my goal, number one, was work with good people, make money, and not work, 100 hours a week, every single week, right? Like, how do I find that balance as well?
I position it as my team is project-based, but they are my go-to core team, and they're on every project that I'm on, but they're not employees. And the landscape is different these days. It maybe not so much in your space, Chris, because you guys have a big staff and locations and everything. But for me and kind of for you, it sounds like, Katie, having that team that is working on other stuff too, but you can tap them when you need them, is pretty critical for me to stay in business these days, and also take on more, and I can scale up and I can scale down. So it really creates some flexibility there that is a little bit different than if we had a big overhead and a space and all of those things. So it works really well in the current landscape for us.
Yeah. And you're getting like the best of the best. Like that's how I see it as well. Like I have like the best logistics person working with me who can, like, as a food and beverage wizard, right? And then I also can pull in the best like content manager if I need someone to be like a TD or the best photographer or whatever. Like I can pull in the number one person at any point in time, and I don't have to hire one person who's like kind of good at everything. I can literally bring the A team every single time in that way.
Yep. Right. That's
and,
awesome.
And your client doesn't need to foot the overhead to have all those people.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Katie, I feel like before we leave this topic, I think it's worth putting out there that most of our clients are female. So I feel like you're a really good representation of people that we work with. You're the mom of some young children. I think, if I could point the spotlight and say, bravo for hanging your own shingle out there and doing it and making your own way. I think certainly part of your decision to go out on your own was also family based as well, right? It's like I get to spend time with my kids and craft or build my own schedule in such a way that I can be the mom, that gets the kids off to school and gets them off the bus and like all of that stuff, which is super important these days. So before we kind of move on from this, is there anything you might want to add to that? Because I think there's certainly a lot of women out there in the industry who might view what you're doing as like their goal.
Mm-hmm.
If I could have the flexibility, and make the money.
Yeah, I think there's definitely that path exists wholeheartedly in this part of the business. What I've had trouble with is I don't like to say no to interesting projects. So I've kind of struggled with like, oh no, but that one sounds really cool too. Like I could take this time off, but then I could do this project. And if I don't do it, someone else will do it. And then I'll have the FOMO. So I do think, yes, 100%. If you wanted to build something where, you don't work over Christmas because your kid's home for Christmas, you don't work the summer where your kids are home for summer, you want to pick them up, you want to end at 3:00 every day, you absolutely can. I think I'm somewhere in the middle at the moment. Like last year, I was really fortunate in that I had a super busy spring. And then like July and August, I had, one client and was keeping the lights on and things were really quiet. And that was really, really nice. But I think the good thing about events too, is you can kind of grind in those seasons. And I'm, lucky in that with this, I'm able to work remote and that allows me a lot more time at home. I am traveling a lot. But again, that's kind of by choice. But I also have a really supportive partner who makes that possible, and that's been kind of our decision for me to scale up and for him to, be at his consistent level. And for me to be able to kind of grind when I can and when I need to, and then like take some time to like reset. Cause I think that works well for me. Cause when I'm in it, it's kind of like a flywheel, right? Like you like to keep going and going and going. And then, when June and July comes, and I know shows are going all year round these days, so it doesn't really stop. But like when the core season ends, you can kind of take a little step back and breathe again.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then after like 2 weeks and you're home and the kids are home from school, you're like, why am I not traveling again?
I know. Although my husband says that the kids are much better behaved when I'm not there. So I don't know what that says about me.
You're the gateway drug, Mommy.
I guess, yeah.
Okay. All right, we're gonna jump to the next set of questions here. So strategy, experience, execution. Katie, your experience or my experience with you primarily was when you were with LogMeIn. Mm-hmm. Those were the golden age, the golden years at LogMeIn. Going into COVID got weird and messy for everybody, but like that business blew up. Mm-hmm. We came out of COVID. It was in the process of you guys were transitioning to go-to at that point. But we did some amazing projects together. We built amazing relationships. I think not only with you, but so many people on the LogMeIn team that went elsewhere and took us with them, which was beautiful. You worked with Bethany Murphy. She must have introduced me into 6 different accounts coming out of COVID, especially. So, as these people kind of expanded and went other places, they were phoning back to your events team and saying, who are those guys that we worked with? We always liked them, right? Mm-hmm. So anyways, that was a little bit of an aside, but I wanted to set the stage because on my question here, I wanted to talk about the outreach, your outreach example, the Women in Sales Summit. So this was after you and I had specifically worked together. Outreach is West Coast based. They were Seattle based, or something.
Yep, Seattle based. Yep.
So you went from being in the office in Boston, working in Boston, to to working for Outreach. So tell us a little bit about that Women in Sales Summit.
Yeah. So Outreach was, like I said, it was a lot of fun because it really threw me headfirst into the real marketing side, like the revenue marketing side of things. So we did a lot of field marketing programs, and then I had a flagship events program. Their flagship event was called Unleash, and that had happened in 2018, 2019, and then took a break from COVID. And so when I came in, we were trying to figure out, okay, like events are back, right? Like the Outreach CEO was really, he loved events, right? Like he just like wanted to be on the stage, wanted to get everybody together, really felt the energy. So he was very encouraging of like these flagship type of events, which was great. But when we kept coming out of COVID, we had to do a lot of thinking. Like I've always said, like I can produce any sort of event, I can create the experience, I can manage the budget, I can get all the right people there, but we've got to figure out like how do we get those attendees that we want into our event, right? Especially when people aren't traveling a lot and their time is valuable and they're being really selective about what they do. So when we thought about our audiences and who we were targeting, there had been some data that showed like the women in sales group. There's a lot of like women in sales leaders that were kind of growing. We had a fantastic CRO at Outreach and an amazing like VP of enablement who were all female leaders. How can we kind of leverage that to tap into this network of folks and encourage them to get out of their house and come join us? So what we decided to do was also to host the event in a place that everyone wants to come. So we hosted the Women in Sales Summit in Napa, which was fantastic. And we hosted it a few days prior to Dreamforce. So Outreach targets sellers, revenue operations managers. So we kind of tapped it on as like a pre-event to Dreamforce. So if you're flying from the East Coast, come in for an extra day, attend this event. And we did a really great job in really curating the experience for the group and tailoring it to the group. We had this MC who was absolutely fantastic, super engaging, got everyone out of their seats, and really got people talking, because I think that's like what is it's really what people strive for in attending events, is they really want a chance to network, but sometimes they don't know how to. And I think especially for women, you're sometimes the only woman in the room. And how do you break into this discussion with men and honestly talk about all the things that you're juggling, and you talk about kids and how you're trying to like become a CRO and hit that C-level, but also manage things at home. And so we were just able to really facilitate a valuable discussion and really create a space where those conversations could thrive, which was really, really important. And the content, while it was focused on outreach and the product, and there was some of that, the real goal was to associate this offering of connection and of advancing your career with Outreach, right? And with Outreach, the brand, and kind of saying like, okay, Outreach provided this venue for me, right? And oh yeah, they have a really good platform as well. They've got great tech. So when I do advance and when I do grow in my career, I'll bring Outreach with me, right? So not that like direct, like buy our product now, here's like, you need this number of seats, but like, how do you make it so that you learn that Outreach is the one presenting this, giving you this experience, right? And one of the things I loved the most about this event, number one, Venus Williams was our keynote speaker. And like, I don't fangirl often, but I was just like, loved meeting her. I also was 8 months pregnant in Napa. So, while the wine was there, that I had Venus to look forward to for the most part. But we hosted an event, it was outside. There was like a DJ and kind of not the standard things that you'd see in an event, but nothing truly extraordinary, but everyone was dancing and they were all having so much fun. And we heard the following day that like women haven't had that experience at a corporate event before because they're worried about someone, looking at them or judging them or coming onto that, or they hadn't felt that free in a really
Right.
long time at a corporate event. And so kind of creating that experience for them, I think was super valuable. And again, just kind of tied back to the brand and kind of allowed them to all like show their authenticity, right? And really be themselves, and helped a lot of people network too.
I mean, you guys captured lightning in a bottle with that, right?
So.
Coming out of COVID, everybody's like, I'm so crazy, like ready to get the hell out of my house. At the same time, I'm still a little scared, maybe.
Yeah.
And now I can go somewhere and be with all women and not have to deal with the creepy dudes. Not that Brendon and I are creepy dudes or anything. Like I don't.
No, I know. But yeah, just having that sense of like freedom, you know.
Right. Yeah. No, that sounds pretty amazing. You know, so one of the other questions that I'm looking at here when I look down is just like strategic clarity. I mean, everything you talked about was so well thought out.
Yeah.
And such a long game play. Like that's in 49 episodes. I don't think the word goal has not come up in every single episode. Like, and this is something that sometimes people just, whistle past. It's like, what are we really trying to accomplish? What are the goals? So that was, kudos to the outreach team and you guys for putting all that together, and to have the clarity of and mindset of like, we're planting seeds that might not actually even, grow or come to fruition for years. But we're gonna do these things. We're gonna lay groundwork, and we're gonna build this amazing event that and to piggyback it on top of Dreamforce. So if anybody doesn't know what that is, it's always in springtime, right? In fall.
In the fall, yeah. Well, it varies, but it was in the fall.
They move it around, but it's always in San Francisco. So you guys are like, okay, so we're literally 25 minutes from San Francisco. Come on in, like you said, a couple of days early. Position yourself. Now, does Outreach, as far as you know, and I know you're not there anymore, do they still do this women's conference?
So they are still hosting. So after, and I know we're probably jumping ahead a little bit in our questions, but okay. So the Women in Sales Summit, as I said, Unleash was the flagship event. So in 2023, Unleash came back, and the Women in Sales Summit was a component of that. I know Unleash happened last year as well, and I believe there was some women in sales component to it as well. But people still talk about it. I still have like some of the speakers and some other participants who are like, "Oh, that was so great. We should bring that back." Like, who could bring? Like, if it's not Outreach, and so if any large companies out there wants to fund it, like who could be the next host of the Women in Sales Summit, right? So
That's so powerful, knowing that people are still talking about it, a couple years removed, or a few years removed. Like that's a real testament to what you did. So congratulations.
Yeah. Oh, thanks.
Well played on that. All right, Brendon, take us into the next zone.
Yeah, so I think maybe spinning off of that a little bit is maybe you can share with us a little bit more your philosophy of not just showing up. What do you mean by that? And sort of walk us through kind of what you mean.
Yeah. I mean, I think like at any trade show or if you're creating a customer conference or a user conference, you can get the speakers, have the booth, have kind of your check. We need these three things, but kind of diving into the why behind, like, why are we doing this? Like, what's the actual, I know you mentioned goal, but, what's the goal? What's the purpose? Who are we targeting? I think that there's a lot of people who were just trying to, you want to do events, right? In your mind, it's a great idea and you want to do it, but how do you make it so that it's something that people want to keep showing up to, right? And that, that kind of has that longevity and creates that like stickiness with the brand.
When I was in television, we had so I was in the promo world. And so we went to a show every year called ProMax, and ProMax was all of these television marketers coming together producers, creative directors, VPs, all of the marketing people on the television side. And it was one of those things that was like every single year, like, where is ProMax going to be? And can I go? And, and then you would be there and you'd see all of the best work. You would see, all the vendors that we would work with would be there. So it really was like not just a trade show event. It was really a way to really come together and exchange ideas and really, and then some of the, some of the speakers that they would bring in, the celebrities that they would have. I mean, Tina Turner played at this thing. It was like amazing. Cool. Like, it was really a really fun event. So I can relate to, creating those things that you want people to want to come back to. So important.
Yeah. And thinking about like keynote speakers and kind of going down that path, I think like it's interesting because at HubSpot, their approach was always like get all of the big names, right? And that helped them drive a lot of attendance, which I think worked really well. Also because they had the product content to back it up. But when thinking about, like I mentioned, Venus Williams, and like thinking about how do you have these high value speakers aren't cheap, right? Like I'm sure Tina Turner was not a cheap person to have, but it can provide that like memory and that value. But when you talk about not just showing up, how do you find a speaker that really is linked to like what the message that you're trying to share, and maybe not the product message, but just even the cultural message, I think is really important.
It's such a great segue into the whole talking about knowledge thing, which I've been dying to get to.
There you go. I know Chris is, I fangirl over Venus Williams. You can fangirl over Mel Robbins.
She's like my therapist in a box,
I mean, I think she's everyone's, right?
She is. She is. So I finished the audiobook of Let Them. And she described her journey from living in Boston, which I didn't know she was a Bostonian, to moving up to this really tiny little town in Vermont. And literally, Katie, she's telling the story and I'm thinking of you. I'm like, oh my God, she's literally like Katie's neighbor in Woodstock or something. So anyways, but one of the cool things, and I'm kind of stepping on Brendan's steel here a little bit, but Mel was a speaker at one of the events that you did. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, sure. So when Unleash came back in 2020 for 2023, it was, we were, again, had this super enthusiastic CEO who really loved events. He had this, one of our core values was like, have a mindset of abundance, right? And it took me a little while to like really figure out, okay, like what does that really mean? Like it's kind of a little like, like a little woo-woo for me. Yeah, there wasn't a huge budget, but like, how do we have this mindset of abundance, right? And that is Mel Robbins, like she is like how you can do anything, like your mind, like she actually puts action to, creating a mindset of like, you can do these things, right? So when we were sourcing for a keynote speaker, she obviously came top of mind. I have a really great relationship with someone who acts as like a speaker booker, an agent, and he was like, okay, let's see if we can get her. Now I don't think she's doing any speaking engagements because her podcast is keeping her so busy, and her books and all of this, but this was a few years ago, so we got lucky and we gave her, put in a standard offer. We did reference we knew it had to be a good offer, right? Like we knew we had to tell her why she really needed to come to this event. And the Women in Sales Summit was a big part of that pitch, right?
Right, I was going to say, so you're coming off of that great success that you had at Women in Sales Summit the previous year in 22. Now we go fast forward 23. People are out there traveling like it's like drinking from a fire hose, right? Anything in the events industry was like, holy shit, everything's happening all at once. And no one was geared up, at least on our end. Like no one could handle the volume, but it was there.
I know it was, and everybody wanted to come, which was great. A good problem to have. But yeah, her. So how do you, when you're being as a speaker or as, talent, right? You're being pulled in a lot of different directions. So we knew we needed to make a compelling offer to her. And unfortunately at first she said no. She was like, I can't, it's my birthday and I need to be back in Vermont for my birthday. So we're like, okay, well, and my CEO with this mindset of abundance, and my CMO, who is also fantastic, but really was like, we need to go back. Like, we need to like go ask again. We need to sweeten the deal. We need to like tell her, what can we do? And so, we offered her a private plane to get her back in time, like an upgraded suite. Can she like come in right just for the day and do this? Because to her, it wasn't really, and this is like knowing your audience, right? On both sides. To her, it wasn't really about the money. I didn't get that. It was more about like her values were she wanted to be home with her family for her birthday, right? And that was a big deal. And so we needed to listen to that and not just say, well, we'll pay you double, we'll pay you triple. It's like, no, we'll allow you to do that, and allow you to also come and speak to our audience, because they would find everything that you're trying to say super valuable. So she eventually said yes. We had a prep call with her and we talked through all the Vermont things. And I'm like, I'm in Woodstock. I'm right down the street from you. Not literally, but almost. And she said, oh my gosh, there's this store in Woodstock that I love. Go tell Susie I say hi. Of course I know Susie too, because it's Vermont. And so, kind of taking that to the next level in this relationship building moment, knowing it was her birthday, I went to the shop and picked out a gift for her with the owner, who knows what she likes, right? Had the owner write her a little handwritten note. And, she opened it on site at the event, and, she films everything, and she was filming it, and her reaction, like she almost had tears in her eyes, and so I like to think, I know she's had a lot of moments in her life, but like, I like to think that she remembered that as well. Right. And so it's like, how do you continue to build these moments, throughout the experience on both sides? And then the funniest thing was, Unleash was not, it was one of the best events that I've ever produced. I was super excited to be part of the team. Outreach went through like a lot of transition in the month before, and it was a really rough lead up to the event. And sometimes you get to an event and you're just like, oh my God, like, how did I get here? Did I make it? Whatever. And I'll never forget her message at the end was like, what if it all works out? Like, you're in this like rough period, and you're just like, you hear her and she's like, what if it all works out? And I was just like, okay, what if it all works out? What if it all works out? And I think she was talking to me. Yeah. And then, like 2 months later, I'm trying to figure out my own consulting thing and all of this. And so now I'm like, she was onto something. Like, I think it's all working out.
That's so cool. So that's such a cool story. And I want to kind of camp on it for a hot second, because there's the idea of corporate gifting and like sending your clients gifts and wooing people and trying to buy their affection and all this shit. There's a lot of, I think, potential negativity that can be perceived in those areas. A lot of companies, they have specific rules and laws about you trying to buy your way in, right? For good reason, right? It's like, hey, you want to go to Jamaica? All I need is sign this contract and we're sending you to Jamaica. But what you did was you heard her, you understood everything that she was saying, what was important to her, and then you took and made something super personal, and then you personalized it even more. And it just all of the steps that you guys undertook. I mean, it was coincidence that you also lived in Vermont, but you took that and you didn't just lean on that and say, oh, we're practically neighbors. You took it to the 3x level, and just and made that impact. I can almost guarantee, as big as a celeb as she is today, she probably remembers getting that gift, right? Because it was so personal. So
I think really also it speaks to when we talk about case studies, it's like case studies get thrown around, like, here was the problem, here's what we did, and here were the results. But when you look at that, like, that's a much deeper analysis, or not analysis, but review of what you did. And I think that's really interesting to see that, like, again, going back to like what you realized what she valued was really important. And I think that you all taking that into consideration and how you approached her is really important, and goes way beyond just the metrics of it. It just is, there's something there that, like, that's the thing that people are going to keep talking about for years. It's still, you're still talking about it, it like she was speaking to you at the end there. If it works out, I mean,
The fact that she said no, and then when you guys went back and said, let's figure out how to make this work, that makes the story even better.
Yeah.
Right. You just mentioned the word metrics, and we are here with about 15 minutes left. We're gonna crank this thing forward here a little bit.
Yeah.
So we're in the data world, right? Everybody wants they want to track metrics. If you can't track it, then how do you know if things are working? So we're going to shift gears a little bit from our touchy-feely Mel story, which I loved, and then let's pull that forward. I think data has never been more important. We all know that, and by the way, my computer, fantastically, timing-wise, continues to tell me that it's going to shut down if I don't snooze it. And it gives me a smaller and smaller and smaller period of time to snooze. So at some point, it's actually going to do it. And hopefully I'm still here. But anyway, if I disappear, that's where I am.
We'll cover for you. It's fine.
Yeah, okay. Perfect. So, Katie, a lot of times, event teams, marketing teams, their headcount has been culled down. They're expected to do more with less. Groups like our group here, Blue Hive, and Brennan's group, we come in, we try to be an extension to your team. But at the end of the day, marketers have never been, I think, under more pressure. Under more pressure to produce, right? And having that data and getting the metrics and understanding what the ROI is at the end of that event has become so important, because at that point, that's where the rubber meets the road, right? The C-suite looks at that and says, either A, we dropped $500,000 from this, what did we get? And if you can prove that we got 3x that in potential pipeline, and look at all the brand equity that we gained and all that stuff, like, you're getting that event back on the calendar for the next year. You're probably going to get a bigger budget. Talk a little bit about kind of ROI metrics that actually matter and what people are looking for.
Yeah. I mean, I think we're in a stage, like you said, where, people are back, they're going out. Like, a lot of companies that want to do events want to do everything, right? And I think you can get into I think it's really important to take a look at your scope and say, like, why are we going to these events, right? Like, what are we getting out of them? And I think even if you are early on in your career and maybe you don't think that you have a lot of say or anything like that, you can always ask that question, right? Like, you can always look at the data and try to look at, like, last year's event and say, like, hey, we didn't track anything. Like, we're not showing any value, any ROI, any pipeline. Like, we're not showing anything. Or, like, this event has our target persona and 3 different places. And I think, like, asking those questions and really diving in and understanding, again, the why behind why you're going to each of these events is ultimately going to make you look good and make the company look good, and make sure that, like, you're attending the events that you should be attending to get the results that you want to get, right? And, like, what are those results, right? I think you can look at, sometimes you go to an event to generate new pipelines. Sometimes you go to an event to close deals. Sometimes you go to an event to, facilitate new partnerships, right? There's a lot of different reasons why. So I don't know if it's really helpful to say, like, measure this, and this. I think it all comes down to what the business is trying to do. And I think as an event marketer, the more that you can be ingrained in the business goals and in, like, what the business is trying to do, the more effective you can be. The other thing I'll say is, like, I know I've talked a lot about outreach, but outreach was a sales tech platform, right? So I learned a lot about how to sell, what's important to sellers. If you don't have a follow-up plan before you go into your event, then the event's going to be worthless. There's almost no point in going, right? I think and the plan, it doesn't have to be extensive, but having a call set up, right? Having emails that go out, like, being engaged. Hopefully you have an SDR, maybe an SDR team, but having a team that's engaged, that's prepped, that knows exactly what to do with those leads, like, within 24 hours after they're at your event, is super important. Working with your marketing team to ensure that you're tracking those leads. It's really hard to track the success of events because events are usually not the one and only touch, right? So, and tracking attribution, I need someone else to come in and talk about all that. But all I know, I mean, it's really, really hard to directly show that this event drove X amount of revenue. So just making sure that you can follow those deals in different ways and keep track of them and understand the impact that the event had is really important too. And I think that there should always be a metric, like a data that is trackable, that can be calculated. Again, it doesn't need to be large, it doesn't need to be complicated, but you need to have some sort of data tied to your event. And then you can have sentiment tied to it as well. Like, how did people, like, what was the internal response? Like, what did the survey say? You know, I think you can do a little bit of a mix of both, because, you know, Brendon loved Tina Turner and loved going to those events, and he always has that sentiment. But did Brendon keep buying from the companies that were there? You know, you need to be able to measure both.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. Brendon, do you get to actually meet Tina Turner, or do you just get to watch her perform?
Oh no, we worked together for years after that, so no.
There you go. You never had to work with Sly. I heard he was coming in.
We can have another podcast on all the celebrities that I have met. So I've met some.
Okay,
that's great.
Throwing shade. The two of you guys, with all of your, working with high-level celebrities here. I once met Rex Ryan at a trade show. Former coach of the Jets.
There you go.
That's I don't have a lot beyond that. No, really interesting, Katie. And again, I'll kind of go back to like just the goals, right? If there's been a consistent theme that's come from these all of these wonderful conversations, is have the goals, and then the follow through is so critical. We're getting ready to go to the exhibitor show. We do a couple of shows a year, so we like to put our shoes, or our feet, I should say, into our clients' shoes as best we can, and understand what their pain points are. So we're out there doing trade shows as well. And my job as the VP of new development, all of that stuff comes back to me. And I was an individual producer for 25 years prior to COVID, and then kind of come back with this different role. It's a lot. It's a lot, right? Because you're coming off of the high of the event and all of these conversations, and you're in your head, you're like, the stuff will all stay fresh. And literally you get home and you're like, it's all just a jumbled mess. So having that plan ahead of time of how we're going to follow up, what we're going to do. Brendon, you and I were just talking last week about creating, video snippet content directed specifically at high level targets. The CEO of such and such corporation, that's one of our big fish that we're going after. I'm going to make a video in the space. Hey, Steve, thanks so much for, coming by the booth. You must remember, the great activation that we've got here, and just wanted to say thank you so much, right? And just doing these small customized pieces, maybe before the event even ends, right? Having those plans in hand, are just only going to kind of further or increase the percentages of success after that event's over. Brendon, take us down this road. These are conversations that we've had with some other folks about, like, not really the trends per se, but micro events and some of these like sidecar events or bolt-on events. Big shows happening. We're going to do this giant dinner party. We're going to rent the club. Talk to us a little bit about kind of where you see all of that going, and how brands are leveraging maybe larger events or larger gatherings, and then bolting onto those and the benefits they can get from some of that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're on to your point, like there's a lot of different formats, and I kind of going back to like intentionality and the strategy piece, like you need to determine who your audience is and what the right event is for that audience. I think, everyone might want to do, I want to do a customer event. I want to do a user conference. I want to do this. I want to do that. Okay. Like why? And like, then you can determine what you're actually going to do. Cause there are a lot of creative different formats out there, and you don't have to just do the trade show booth. You can do the ancillary event with it. Right. So there's a lot of options.
It sort of speaks to your partnership and your guidance as an expert to go to that client and say, well, yeah, you want to do the trade show, but is that really the right thing for you at this point? Mm-hmm. Like, If you want to talk to a dozen people, well, maybe a specific dinner or something around the trade show is a lot more effective than just having a booth and having, marketing flypaper out there. Like maybe you want to have something that's really specific. And I think that speaks to your talent to really guide the client to the right thing that's going to be most effective, because then you can report more accurately. If you're doing the right thing, the data coming back out is going to be better, right?
Mm-hmm. Totally.
Yeah.
Part of the reason for my panic is, again, my computer's telling me it's going to shut down in a minute.
Yeah.
So, well, good. I cleared it with Juana. She's like, well, we'll take care of it. It will be no problem. Absolutely. No, I'm just curious. Let's go back in time to 10 minutes ago when you guys did the outreach event in Napa, specifically located it close by to Dreamforce in San Francisco. Did you view that? I mean, you were strategic with your location. Were you viewing that as kind of this sidecar event to Dreamforce? Okay.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we were trying to leverage that audience and kind of engage them. Do
you know what percentage of the folks who came to the outreach women's?
Very high. I think it was about 80%. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And some folks were local, but it was a pretty high percentage. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. All right, Brendon, what else do you want to ask about this as we start our wrap-up process?
Well, I think there was one more topic that sort of is more industry focused, I think, and it really has to do with the pressure that we're all seeing on budgets, and then how are you seeing that affect or maybe create even opportunities for freelance or contract work? What's that landscape looking like these days?
Yeah, I mean, for me, my path was like, my intention was not to go into consulting or to have my own business. It was to find another director of events role where I could do essentially what I was doing at Outreach, right? Manage flagship events team, internal events, external events, kind of have that full scope. I think a lot of companies are, and this is just based on like my LinkedIn knowledge and research, but there aren't a lot of those jobs out there. But there's always a lot of contract dollars out there. And when people need fractional support, it's a lot easier to spend a fraction of a full salary on someone to come in and build out strategy, launch a user conference, run a customer advisory board, kind of start it off before kind of diving into that full-time, director level or VP level hire. That's what I've seen. And that's kind of how I've been able to find success.
I think opening that up, opening people's eyes to those opportunities. And I think it's probably changed in the last 10 years where the gig mentality, the project-based work is not as scary as maybe it used to be. People are a little more used to it. And it's good to know, I think, for people to know that those opportunities are out there and that you just have to kind of maybe adapt and change what you're looking for. It might not be a job listing. It might be a project listing.
Yeah. And I think, again, it all comes back to relationships, right? And like all of my networking was originally for a full-time role because that's what I knew. But then when it started to kind of open up and kind of understand that there's, great retainers out there and different types of projects, I think and also remote work, obviously. Like I built my life here. I don't want to move. So I think it opens it up for a lot of people who are looking for, you don't have to be in Boston, especially as a consultant, to support a Boston-based company.
Right. That was interesting. So it finally caught me. It was chasing me all episode, and now it's finally here. Katie, this has been fantastic. I've been looking forward to having you on the show for a long time. I know the timing took a while to kind of make it all come together, but this has been a great conversation. It's been really great also to having recently just kind of get to work together again. And do a project that we just pretty much wrapped up with a show. So all good stuff. Thanks for joining us. I think your story is really cool, and I know a lot of similarities with kind of Brendon's track, and you're just a few years behind us, which is good. Anyways, we're wrapping up here on the Toolbox. Couple of takeaways, Katie. What are some things that either a brand new thing, or, kind of put a bow on something that you've already talked about, a couple of little nuggets that you can leave with our listeners.
Yeah. I mean, I think like number one, relationships are really key in this industry. I mean, in general, I think like prioritizing your relationships and making sure that you're continuing to build them along with your personal brand along the way, I think is really important. Also, like we talked about a lot, like tracking, right? Making sure that you're being intentional with what you're doing and kind of have a reason behind your actions. I think that will allow longevity and success in all of your events. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Fantastic. And last question for me, how do people get a hold of you? Should they want to reach out and engage your services, or just
Yeah, no, I'm always happy to kind of pass along any knowledge that's helpful, especially anyone who's thinking about, going down the consulting path. The best way is probably email. I think it'll be put in the chat somewhere, but katie@kvtevents.co.
Right there.
Or feel free to find me on LinkedIn.
Well, guys, great conversation. Appreciate it. We got to wrap this guy up. This was episode number 49. Next one coming up is 50. We're going to do an awesome recap for the year. And again, thank you, Brendon, sitting in the co-host seat. Thank you, Katie, joining us from snowy and chilly Vermont. Everybody have a great one, and cheers. Thanks so much. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Brendon.